Welcome to another episode of Wolverine Confidential. I'm Bryn Mickle, and with me is...
Andrew Kahn, MLive basketball beat writer.
Aaron McMahon, MLive football beat writer.
All right, we're going to be talking all things Michigan basketball and football this week. But first things last, Michigan game against Maryland. What was up with that freaky dog?
The halftime show. Yeah, I mean, when you go around the Big Ten, you see all of them. So I've seen him before. I don't know, what his act is called, but he's got I think it's a Chihuahua. It's a very small dog. And he does handstands, and the dog ends up on his feet, pointing, up towards the rafters. It's impressive. It's no red panda, but it's.
Now, what is red panda?
We just lost many subscribers.
All right.
I mean, I'm not going to interrupt the podcast to have you YouTube it, and you have to be there anyway.
Look, I'm no Eli Zink.
Red Panda, and this is what she goes by the way.
Yes,
yes. She's on a unicycle, and she flips, dishware onto her head.
Sometimes while juggling, too.
One at a time, with her from foot to head. And she stacks them. She got the unicycle stolen, Aaron. I don't know if you heard about this.
Yeah, there was a story about it.
Yeah, she goes around the NBA as well, and it was stolen at an airport. And I think maybe the Cavs stepped in and bought her a new one.
I think
it's expensive. But it's not the same one. And she was here for Senior Day for Michigan, and then went over Ohio State. I thought she was on her game, but.
So not only did we beat Maryland on the court, but we beat them at halftime attractions as well.
Yeah. At least, this season.
She's real impressive. She's a frequent halftime entertainer in the NBA. I've seen her a couple times during my travels. By far the best, I think.
All right, Red Panda. I'll have to check it out.
If you've never seen her, Google her. She's fantastic.
All right. Well, so beside the fact that I think the dog was the best thing on the court for Maryland in that game, what did we learn from the Michigan win over Maryland moving forward?
Well, it's Michigan's 5th win in a row, so they go into the Big Ten tournament hot. And we learned that Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman is doing his best Derek Walton Jr. impression at the perfect time. Beeline said he took him aside during the game and told him that just that. He's hitting shots that we haven't seen him really make his whole career. He's had this steady progression, from being thrown into the fire as a freshman to now a senior who's putting it all together, heading into March. So that was huge for them. And the defense was once again really good. So the defense has been steady, and now the offense is starting to find its rhythm and look more like a John Beeline offense.
So back on Rahman, how much of it is the glasses?
Sure, of course, that was the story after, and he's a superstitious kid. You've got, many athletes are, but he had the pink shoes that he wore in the Big Ten tournament, and then stuck with them because they won, and he played well. And now the glasses, which he was wearing to begin with, by his own choosing. He did get poked in the eye, but there was no actual damage that necessitated the glasses. He just wanted to be extra cautious. He steps in there and hits the first few shots, and that was it. He'll be wearing them throughout New York.
So we should expect to see these until Michigan season is over?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the whole starting 5 comes out with them on Thursday afternoon, the way they play. Maybe even, the coaching staff will be donning them. It was that kind of performance, career high.
Is there going to be a sponsorship deal a la the Tom Brady kinetic tape?
Well, we'll have to see. Who are the Oakley? Aren't they? Those were the glasses of my youth, at least, that all the cool kids had. But, it'll be.
So, all right, we talked about a little bit about this before, but when we look at basketball, when we look at football, pressure. Everything Michigan football does is under the microscope. This team can't.
Everything.
They can't, issue a press release without everybody analyzing it and trying to read the tea leaves. Then you have Michigan basketball, which it just feels like if they just show up and do half well, everybody's like, this is awesome, this is great. How much pressure is this team under going into the Big Ten tournament, especially since they won the whole thing last year?
Yeah, similar to the attitude towards the beat writers on their respective sports as well. Just show up and just we'll take what we can get.
We just let you do whatever.
Right.
Him we care about.
No, it's very true. I guess it gets to the heart of and basketball fans, the diehards, and there are many here at Michigan aren't going to like to hear this, but if you're saying whether it's a football school or basketball school, I think we know which one Michigan falls under. So I think that's just part of it, and tradition and the national championships and Big Ten championships and things like that. But yeah, it's a very fair point. The expectations, Michigan's a 5 seed, but I think they're dangerous. I mean, they're certainly one of the favorites to cut the nets down again in New York. So, but yeah, at the same time, if they didn't, and they simply make the tournament, then we'll reset and reassess things. But you're absolutely right. It's the fact it was not a given that they'd make the tournament at the beginning of the year, and I think fans understood that.
Has Beeline talked about that, of what his expectations are for the tournament, of what he wants to see?
Yeah, he was recently asked that, and he just doesn't like to go there. He'll let fans and media make predictions and expectations. I mean, he truly is. I guess it's a coaching cliche, but he really is. We just want to get better every week, and we'll see where this goes. And especially with a young team and a lot of new pieces with transfers, want to be playing our best at the end of the season. And right now they are. So that's why he's happy. They've met that expectation, if there is one. But he doesn't really put one for wins or we got to get to this seed or this spot in the NCAA tournament.
So can you talk a little bit about now everything, Big Ten season is in the books as far as regular season. What's Michigan's path in Big Ten tournament look like?
Yeah, so they are the 5 seed, and Beeline is okay with that. It was really funny because he talked about how he kind of didn't care, and then at the press conference before the Maryland game, he's talking about how important it is to get this double
Let's
bye.
be honest, they care. They care.
Yeah, so then I just kind of straight up asked him, like, okay, you're kind of going, how do you really feel? And he kind of smiled and said, well, I'm trying to motivate my team any way I can. So he just wanted to win that final game to get another win because they all count for your resume. But the fact that they didn't get the double bye because they lose it on a tiebreaker isn't the end of the world. They'll get a game under their belt. They're playing well right now, so it gets them on the court a day earlier than it would have. And it gets them against a team, either Illinois or Iowa, that they already beat, in the case of Iowa twice. So that's who they'll play Thursday. It'll be the second game of the day, so after Michigan State, so approximately 2:30 tip-off. And yeah, Michigan will be expected to win that game and then move on to Nebraska Friday, a team that they did not match up well with at all in a game in Lincoln earlier this season. So that'll be a much more difficult challenge for them. And then if they advance, it'd probably be Michigan State. They're the 1 seed there, and then you're in the finals, and who knows. But that's what the path is looking like for Michigan.
And then a little bit different this year in that after that game on Sunday, the championship game, then it's not Selection Sunday.
Right.
Now you have to wait a week.
Yeah, and the Big Ten, it's really from one extreme to another, because not only were they playing on Sunday, but they were playing the last game. I mean, yeah, you guys remember, it's going right up till the selection show. I thought it always hurt them a little bit, including last year. I mean, Michigan, I know they have their contingencies, but I never felt like the Big Ten champion got much due for winning that game. But yeah, now they'll have a full week, like you said, and that's only for the teams that actually win it.
Right.
The others could be out Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So yeah, Michigan. I'll have a story about this, about how they're going to handle that week. They're still not completely certain, and sort of the pros and cons on it. But yeah, it'll certainly be different for all these Big Ten teams.
I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but is there concern that may be too long for them to sit around and not play a game?
Sure. I mean, I think it's going to be one of those things where if the Big Ten teams do poorly, that will be discussed. That will be that's where fingers will point. And if they do well, it'll either be forgotten or it'll be, ooh, they look real rested, So it's like rusty versus rested. And, it kind of depends where you are, as far as injuries and things like that. Right now, Michigan, every team's banged up this time of year, but Michigan is overall pretty healthy. So they wouldn't necessarily, need that rest for that reason, but we'll see.
All right, and so they are what, number 15 in the land right now?
Yes, I believe so. I mean, it's tournament time. I'm checking, Ken Palm and BPI and their RPI and the various rankings, so they all kind of get mixed up. But that seems, I think that's where they are. And today's
And so
big people.
What seed are we looking at for them?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's an important one, of course. And right now, a 6 seed is where they're projected by the bracketologists, and that seems fair. It seems like, but the good news from last week for Michigan fans is that seems more like a floor for them right now, that they could climb higher, 5, 4, with a good showing in New York.
I mean, honestly, you think really they could get as high as a 4 seed?
I do, and again, you'd think that with time to fully appreciate the run in New York, unlike in past years, if they were to make one, I think they could, but it of course depends on every other team in the country basically. So it's hard to say definitively that a Big Ten tournament title equals 4 seed, but.
So one final question on basketball this week.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the best player in this team right now?
That's a very fair question. I still give it to Mo Wagner. I have a story on him later today, I believe, on MLive.com, because they still play through him so much, and he's such a threat even if he doesn't have the ball. I mean, that two teams are game planning against, and that's a tough matchup for anyone. Now, the way Abdur Rahman is playing right now, offensively, he's in the conversation, and I imagine that's part of the reason you asked that question. But still, teams usually have some sort of two-guard or wing player who can at least try to match up with him. Many teams don't have a mobile big man that's comfortable guarding Wagner. So, and his rebounding has been huge as well. So I'd still say him, but it's a fine problem for Michigan to have, not one they're concerned about, that's for sure. They're playing very well as a team right now.
Is it a case of as Mo goes, Michigan goes, or does enough attention have to be paid to him no matter what, that it's opening up spaces for these other guys to really shine on any given night?
I'd say more the latter, and if it says anyone goes, Michigan goes, then that player would be Duncan Robinson, and to a certain extent Jordan Poole right now. They need one of those guys to come off the bench and hit shots. Lately it's been both, for them to really give themselves a good shot to win. I mean, Duncan Robinson, the stat now is widely disseminated. I think it's 20-0 when he scores at least 6 points. That's all they need, just a couple threes, or however he gets there. They've won those games when he's done that, and I think that speaks, of course, to his importance and sort of that fourth option, say, around the more established stars.
All right. Well, hey, switching focus a little bit. Let's look at football. Where so Drevno last week resigns.
Yes, so the report goes.
What do we know about that, and what's that mean?
Yeah, I think I was asked about this over the weekend, but I think two things are at play here. I think one, Jim Harbaugh realized something needed to change on the offensive side of the ball, and I think Tim Drevno at the same time saw the handwriting on the wall. You saw the Michigan coaching staff. You saw Harbaugh bring on, Dan Enos to be a wide receivers coach. Obviously, went on to leave, but you see Jim hire a Ed Warner, a guy with so much experience coordinating offenses, being an offensive line coach, to be an analyst, and then you see him bring on Jim McElwain, former head coach, former offensive coordinator, to be a wide receivers coach. In essence, you had two guys with so much experience; they're almost overqualified for the positions they were hired for. So I think, in some ways, I think Tim Drevno saw the handwriting on the wall. He realized, things weren't improving offensively. You got to keep in mind, halfway through the season last year, he was taken out of the press box. He was calling plays from the press box. They decided to put him on the sidelines. It was unclear. We never got a clear answer on whose decision that was or why that happened. But I have to believe that at Harbaugh, and he said this before, he acknowledges the offense is a step behind the defense. Things needed to change. He shuffled his coaching staff, and in a way, it was a decade-long relationship between those two. We don't know the particulars. We're not behind the scenes, but something obviously happened. There was a realization on both sides that change needed to happen.
So, are we still looking at this? And really, you still got Pep Hamilton in there, right?
Yes.
So you had the three-headed monster calling plays last year. Mm-hmm. Have we just added a fourth head?
That's the question. I don't know if it's going to be another 3 guys calling plays. I don't know if it's going to be down to Harbaugh and Jim McElwain. That's the question that still needs to be answered. Last year for most of the season, in fact, the entire season, you had Drevno, Harbaugh, and Pep Hamilton having they were having an input on play calling. Now Harbaugh said he had the final say, so I don't know how much of it was him actually dialing the play up, but he was certainly giving feedback and giving the final say on things. Now I don't know. Ed Warner's obviously in there. He's had offensive coordinating experience before. Pep Hamilton is still there. I'm sure he's going to want input on the throwing plays. So it's gonna. I don't know. That's the question that needs to be answered. McElwain certainly has play calling experience. He could probably do it. And I think for this Michigan offense to succeed in some ways, I think you do need to condense the play calling. I think it needs to be McElwain and Harbaugh, or maybe just McElwain. Now knowing Harbaugh and he likes to have his prints on things, and he likes to have input, especially with the quarterback. I don't see him just giving up everything to McElwain, but I could see it certainly coming down to McElwain and Harbaugh.
So are the guys that are coming in here, McElwain, Warner, are we going to see something different with the offense, or are they 3 yards and cloud of dust guys? Are they wacky offense guys? What are they?
McElwain has experience obviously running the pistol offense at Florida and some degree at Colorado State. I think it's almost it could depend on who the starting quarterback ends up being. If you've got a Shea Patterson who is, if he's ruled eligible and able to play and ends up getting the starting job, then they're going to have to mold the offense a little bit differently than they did with, say, a Brandon Peters or Dylan McCaffrey. One of the things about Patterson people like to talk about is his ability to scramble and make plays out of nothing. You didn't get that much with Peters. You didn't get that much with Wilton Spate. They're very much pocket guys and design rollouts and things like that. But it's going to depend, I think, on who ends up at quarterback. I mean, they've got options at running back, they've got options at fullback, and they've got some athletic receivers out there to make things work. They got some tight ends that obviously Harbaugh likes to use as well. It's, I think, dependent who's under center to some degree.
I saw, by the way, I'm remembering I saw Don Brown at the Detroit airport on my way to Maryland on Friday. I was like, geez, did they send him packing too? Is everybody still wearing his Michigan gear though? But,
I think he's safe. Of any of the coaches, I think he is safe.
He might be safer than Harbaugh at this point. I mean, he's certainly, I think, more popular in some circles than Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
But spring ball kicks in when?
March 23rd. It'll be a Friday. They just unofficially announced the schedule over the weekend. And let me point this out too. Going back to Drevno really quick, Michigan hasn't acknowledged Drevno's departure just yet. I reached out to a Michigan spokesperson Friday afternoon. They had nothing to say. He is still listed on GoBlue.com as in the assistant coaches listing. So right now, Michigan isn't saying anything, but all signs point to Drevno being out the door.
So possibly there's 5 heads to this monster.
Right.
Oh, it is bizarre. I mean, the season, their final game was January 1, and now here we are in late February. Whether he was let go or truly did resign, it begs some questions about why now and why that long stretch. It's I'm sure we'll get answers eventually, or maybe not. But
kind of going off that, keep in mind he had a retention bonus he collected January, I think middle of January, $150,000 just for staying on staff. Now,
must be nice,
right? Now, keep in mind, like I mentioned before, Harbaugh did bring Dan Enos on staff. Enos left after 6 weeks, so I have to believe that if Harbaugh had the intention of pushing Drevno out or getting him to resign like this, he was probably hoping to do it with Dan Enos before, but Enos bailed on him. So I don't know if that gave Drevno maybe some more time, that maybe bought him more time, that maybe he could have in theory come back and Harbaugh would have taken it. I don't know, but it was just a very weird offseason with this coaching carousel in Michigan.
So, and you mentioned the name that every Michigan fan is interested in, Shea Patterson.
Yes.
So with spring ball, will he take part in spring ball?
Yes. I looked up the rule a few weeks ago, actually. Say he's ruled ineligible to play in 2018, he can still practice with the team. He can still take part in workouts. He can still go through everything that needs to happen, other than playing on the field. So, yes, he will take part in spring practice. He's already enrolled at Michigan. He's eligible to work out with the team. He's going through conditioning right now. Harbaugh, he had some fine words. He said some fine words about him earlier in the month during his recruiting signing day press conference or whatever. So he's here. He's going through everything with his teammates. He's waiting on a ruling from the NCAA, and that could come next month. I think it would come before spring practice starts. I think that's what Michigan wants. They would like to have a decision because they can move forward from there, knowing that information. But we'll see. We're still waiting.
You need the FBI to rule on this. It'd be a much faster decision.
Yeah, no kidding.
Do we know? I mean, what are they doing? I mean, are they just looking to see if he got like a suitcase full of money to come here, or
it's long, and he's involved with several other now former Ole Miss players that are leaving the program. When the whole NCAA sanctions came down, his attorney is also representing several other Ole Miss players. They're all claiming that they were, led to believe that the sanctions or the penalties weren't going to be so severe. So they decided to stay and play at Ole Miss. And that's really the heart of this ruling here. The NCAA is going to rule what. Because typically what happens when obviously for those of you that maybe don't follow NCAA football time, but if a player transfers from one Division I FBS school to another, most of the time they have to sit out a year. They rule it a academic. I can't think of the term, but it goes back to an academic setting. They have to experience 1 year in school, an academic setting, then they're allowed to play again. But what Patterson and his teammates again are arguing is, well, we would have transferred last year had we known that this was going to come down and we weren't going to be able to play in a bowl game. Because keep in mind, Ole Miss penalized itself 1 year, gave itself a 1 year bowl ban. Proactively before the NCAA did anything.
Right.
NCAA piles on another year. So Patterson and his teammates are arguing, well, we would have left had we not known that.
Well, not to mention, coaches do this all the time, and they don't have to sit out a year.
That's the argument. Yes.
It's ridiculous. But I digress. All right. Well, I think that covers our subjects for this week. We'll be back next week. Eli will be back in the host seat. Aaron is actually off.
Filled in admirably.
Yes, he did a good job.
Wonderful
job.
I appreciate that.
Maybe Eli's fired now. We'll see.
But in Aaron's space next week, we're going to have Ryan Zook here talking Michigan hockey.
Nice.
And so
Wow.
They're doing well.
First Eli,
Right.
now you.
Yeah,
Right.
all right.
A lot of change, So you better hope your team keeps winning,
Yeah,
or you'll be on the sidewalk
Talking about
as
the writing
well.
on the wall, yeah.
So, all right. Well, hey, come back next week, and we'll see you again for another edition of Wolverine Confidential.